Rafa Nadal reveals his favorite between Alcaraz and Djokovic. The 2026 Australian Open final crowned Carlos Alcaraz in the world of tennis, as he completed the career Grand Slam in Melbourne after defeating Novak Djokovic. The player from Murcia won the trophy he had been chasing for years and achieved it with a guest of honor present, Rafa Nadal, who was featured in the speeches of both finalists after the match. Now the Monaco native has spoken about the other two protagonists during the presentation of the charity golf circuit Spin and Swing by Cantabria Labs, which collaborates with his own foundation. The main topic of the media scrum was the comparison between the current world number one and Djokovic, the tennis player with the most major titles in history. But Nadal did not want to choose between them. "We have to be happy to have Djokovic, who is still up there, and, for us, Alcaraz. Having a player like Carlos representing us all over the world and taking tennis to an incredible level, I think we can only enjoy it and appreciate it," said the 14-time Roland Garros champion. He removed the label of prospect from Alcaraz. "He has 7 Grand Slams. He is already a legend of our sport. If you look at great historical players, there aren't that many who have won 7 majors. In Australia he played a high-level, competitive match, where the age difference could be seen, but each tried to bring their performance to the maximum with their own weapons. I really enjoyed watching the final," he added. The comparison of Alcaraz and Djokovic with Cristiano and Messi. To support his stance, he placed the two tennis professionals alongside Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi. Comparing Alcaraz with the current Djokovic is like comparing today's Messi with the one who played at Barcelona, or the current Cristiano with the one who played at Real Madrid. I have never said and I will never say that one is better than the other. Each one's career will define them, he commented. There was no shortage of praise for the Serbian. I don't think it changes anything in tennis if Djokovic wins his 25th Grand Slam. It's neither good nor bad for tennis. Djokovic has had an impressive career and is still there because he still can be. He had an opportunity in Melbourne. Honestly, I don't think he has many left because of his age, but what he's achieving is admirable," Rafa concluded. Alcaraz returns to work with the threat of a sinner benefited by his doping suspension. Carlos Alcaraz faces a date next week that is far more important in his season than it may seem at first glance. The Mercian will compete in the ATP 500 Doha with added pressure, the need to win a title to compensate for the loss of points after his absence in Rotterdam and, above all, to keep the race for world number one tight against Jannik Sinner. The Italian does not defend points until Rome and has a golden opportunity to close the gap in the rankings. Alcaraz arrives in Qatar after intensifying his preparation at the Club de Campo de Murcia, alongside Samu Lopez and his brother Alvaro. As seen in images shared on social media, the Spaniard has continued training intensely in recent days before traveling to Doha next Saturday. The goal seems clear: to arrive in the best possible condition for a tournament in which last year he fell just short of the semi-finals. In 2025, he reached the quarterfinals but lost to Jiri Lehecka in a match he practically had won. The ranking situation adds even more tension to the tournament. Before deciding to compete in Doha, Alcaraz had planned to defend his ATP 500 Rotterdam title, a trophy he won last season that awarded him 500 key ranking points. However, he withdrew from the Dutch tournament to rest, which implies the automatic loss of those points. In practice, this represents a step back in the race for the ATP crown, especially considering the consistency Sinner has been showing, who will also be benefited by last season's suspension, when he was out for 3 months. The Italian tennis player, current world number 2, tested positive for clostebol in March 2024 and suspicion of doping was always present. However, he was cleared by tennis authorities, although the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, reopened the case seeking a 2-year ban. In the end, they reached an agreement without going to court and he received a tailor-made sanction of only 3 months, without it coinciding with any Grand Slam. Moreover, a year later, the fact that he does not defend a single point until the Masters 1000 in Rome now gives him an excellent opportunity to return to world number 1. Shocking message from Fernando Alonso to Alcaraz that no one expected. What do Carlos Alcaraz and Fernando Alonso say to each other when they meet face to face in the Bahrain paddock, just before the Mercian travels to Doha to compete in the Qatar Open? It is not a fantasy chat or a superficial exchange for a photo. It is a direct dialogue between two competitors who understand what it means to live under constant pressure and represent an entire country. Alcaraz arrives after winning in Australia and prepares for his debut in Doha. Alonso tests his new single-seater with his sights set on winning again. Between engines and rackets, they exchange clear, sincere, and competitive words. Fernando is the first to break the ice. "Congratulations on Australia, you started the year like a true number 1, he tells him while removing his gloves. Carlos responds naturally, "Thank you, Fernando. Seeing you still here, fighting every season, is also motivation for us. There is no exaggeration, just respect between two athletes who know how hard it is to win. They talk about the invisible effort, the hours away from home, and the mental cost of staying at the top when everyone wants to knock you down week after week on any international stage. Alonso asks him directly about Doha. Do you have time to switch focus so quickly after a Grand Slam? Alcaraz does not hesitate. Yes, because if you stay celebrating, you lose your edge. In Doha, no one gives you anything. From that phrase, they talk about the danger of relaxation. Fernando nods and comments that in Formula One it is the same. One good race does not guarantee the next. They agree that high performance requires short memory for successes and cold analysis for mistakes without unnecessary drama. Carlos also takes the opportunity to congratulate him. I've seen the new car, you can feel the excitement. Hopefully this year you win again. Alonso smiles and replies realistically, the excitement is there, but then you have to prove it on track. That sentence sets the tone of the conversation. They do not live on expectations, they live on results. They talk about how experience helps manage critical moments. Fernando explains that now he makes decisions more calmly than 20 years ago. Carlos admits he is learning to control impulses in long and physically demanding matches. The topic of media pressure arises. Alonso comments, they compare you to Nadal all the time, that weighs on you. Alcaraz responds sincerely, it's an honor, but I have to make my own path. From there, they reflect on personal identity. Fernando recalls that he also carried labels when he won his titles and that the important thing is to compete according to your convictions. Both agree that listening too much to external noise can distract from the real work, which always happens away from cameras and flashy headlines. They also talk about leadership. Fernando explains that in his team hundreds of people depend on decisions he makes in seconds. Carlos comments that although tennis seems individual, his team also needs emotional stability from him. If I collapse, it shows, he says. Alonso replies, exactly, the driver transmits everything to the team. They agree that calmness is contagious and that the leader's character sets collective performance in moments of maximum competitive demand. Before parting, Fernando sends him a clear message, enjoy Doha, but compete hungry. Carlos answers with another direct phrase, and you go for that victory, there's still fuel left. They laugh, but the message is serious. Both know that time passes quickly in professional sport. They part with a firm handshake and the feeling of having spoken with someone who fully understands what it means to live competing against the world every weekend. The conversation continues for a few more minutes, now less formal. Alonso asks how he handles tight matches. Carlos explains that he tries to focus only on the next point, never on the overall score. Fernando replies that in a race he applies the same principle, corner by corner, lap by lap. That coincidence reinforces the idea that the elite share similar codes regardless of discipline. Breaking concentration into small objectives reduces general anxiety and improves sustained performance. Carlos also shows interest in the Asturian's longevity. What keeps you here after so many years? Alonso answers without hesitation, competitiveness. If I lose that, I'm gone. That phrase impacts Alcaraz, who admits his biggest fear is losing ambition. They discuss internal versus external motivation. Both conclude that when energy comes from within, criticism or praise loses power over performance and emotional stability. The Merchant mentions rivals like Yannick Sinner and the growing level of the circuit. Each tournament is a different battle, he states. Alonso nods and compares that situation to the current Formula One grid, increasingly tight. They agree that the margin for error is minimal. One bad day can cost a title or a podium. That is why they value consistency so much. The ability to perform at 95% even when you are not at your physical best. They also talk about personal sacrifice. Fernando comments that the life of an elite athlete demands constant renunciations. Carlos admits that at his age he is still learning to balance public exposure and private life. Both agree on protecting their close circle as a priority. The people who were there before you won are the ones who should stay, Alonso points out. Carlos nods convinced. They understand that success can distort relationships if not managed with maturity. Almost saying goodbye, Fernando tells him, what matters is not how long you are at the top, but how you compete while you're there. Carlos replies, then you have to take advantage of every season as if it were unique. They look at each other with competitive complicity. They do not talk about retirements or records, they talk about the present. Doha is just around the corner and the Formula One season begins soon. Each returns to his field with a clear idea, compete without excuses. The talk between Carlos Alcaraz and Fernando Alonso is not an idealized tale, it is a direct exchange between two competitors who understand the price of success. sincere congratulations, realistic warnings, and a shared vision about discipline, pressure, and ambition. Before Doha and before the start of the new Formula One season, both reinforced the same philosophy: talent matters, but mentality sustains everything when decisive moments arrive. If you like this analysis of the meeting between Alcaraz and Alonso, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss more elite sports stories told in detail. Leave us in the comments which phrase impacted you the most from this conversation and who you think will have a brighter year. We read you.